anything like this?
Never.
Hold on. Twisters is the new big summer blockbuster disaster film that dropped in theaters this weekend. It's directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and it stars Daisy Edgar Jones as Kate, who is a scientist who had a very, very bad experience with a tornado once and has now made it her life's goal and her life's mission to try and save people by finding a way to disrupt tornadoes. But the movie also stars Glenn Powell, who plays Tyler Owens, aka the Tornado Wrangler, and Tyler's whole thing is that not only is he a storm chaser, but he has a whole crew and they make YouTube videos, kind of what I'm doing now, where I just make YouTube videos. However, his whole goal is to raise awareness for tornadoes, but also do cool stuff in the meantime, like shoot cool fireworks into the tornadoes. So basically, you've got one girl working for science, you've got this other guy working for views, and of course, they chase the same storm together one day, and not only do they end up chasing storms, but a romantic relationship starts to blossom between the two of them. Now, if that sounds like an interesting film, you can go check this one out. It is playing in theaters now. Maybe you're a big disaster movie fan, or maybe you like Glenn Powell and you're like, you know what? I like his movies where he plays the romantic lead in a film because he's been doing a few of those lately. So either way, if that's your cup of tea, you should go check this movie out in theaters. But of course, Twisters is a distant sequel to Twister, which came out in 1996. And Twister is a movie that my wife absolutely loves. You know, that is a movie she watched as a young child. It kind of scarred her for tornadoes, but also gave her this deep love for that movie. She quotes it from time to time. Anytime we pass a cow, I'll be honest, that's when she quotes it the most. She'll be like, hey, saw a cow. Another cow might have been the same cow. She says it every time we pass a cow. However, I had never seen this movie until a month or two ago, and I wanted to prep myself for Twisters, so we sat down and watched it, and I had a really enjoyable time. But I will say, if you haven't seen Twister yet, you did not need to see it in order to watch Twisters, because like I said, it's like a distant sequel, or what some people would call a requel, which is when they reboot a franchise by making it a very distant sequel, where there's elements, maybe they pay homage to some of the themes from the first film, but it stands alone on its own. It has no real connection to the first movie, and that's what this movie is. So if you're looking for a connective tissue, if you're a big Twister fan, you're like, oh, I'm so excited to see Twisters, that's great because it'll still have tornadoes, it still has a romantic relationship, but it has no connection. There's no connective tissue to that first Twister movie. My first interaction with Twister actually goes back a little bit further than a couple months ago because I did see a snippet of this movie on TV when I was a kid with my brothers and sisters, but I have one brother who's deathly afraid of tornadoes, and when tornadoes started up in the movie, he was like, nope, we got to switch the channel. So we switched it, and I briefly remember Sylvester Stallone killing somebody in like a laundromat setting, and that guy's body going into a bag. That's all I remember. I don't know what movie that's from. If you can tell me, let me know in the comment section down below, because I want to check out that Sylvester Stallone movie. But with that said, I've seen Twisters now, and I've got some positives, and I've got some negatives, and I'm in a hotel room. Let's do it. The first positive I have for this movie is going to be how great those Twisters looked in the movie. The tornadoes looked awesome in this thing, and I did just watch Twister a couple months ago, but since I watched it at home, the screen's not as big as what you're going to get in a theater, and so getting to see tornadoes on the big screen, that was pretty cool. And don't get me wrong, I've seen other disaster movies in theaters before, but never where tornadoes are the main focus of the film. So having tornadoes being the main focus of this disaster movie was really cool because you could see how big and giant those Twisters are, and it's really fun to kind of watch those on the big screen, and I had a great time with the visuals of this movie. Next positive I have is Glenn Powell's acting. I just have a great time with this guy anytime he's on screen, whether it's on my screen at home, whether it's at the theater, doesn't matter. Anytime Glenn Powell is in a scene in this movie, he's a scene stealer. He really is. He is an A-list star that is just climbing and climbing and climbing, in my opinion, and I'll just watch anything with Glenn Powell in it at this point. But I had a great time watching him in this movie. He did a great job in his role, but what I really liked about him was his energy that he would bring to the screen every scene that he was in. If the movie ever felt like it was lagging, it's because he wasn't in it, and when it started to pick up, it's because they popped him back into a scene. His character is also very likable. He's an entertainment star on YouTube, and he's doing cool stuff with tornadoes, so as an audience member wanting the movie to pick up, if it's not a big gigantic tornado scene, if he shows up, it's still a fun time, and he brings the energy energy to the screen. Another positive I have with this movie is the soundtrack. Now, I've heard other people say the Twister soundtrack is great. I've only seen it once. I don't really remember. Granted, I've only seen Twisters once, but it was more recent. And the soundtrack in this movie was so much fun. It definitely helped bring that energy to the movie as well. Like I said, there are parts of this movie that lag a little, and between Glenn Powell's performance and the soundtrack, it really just kicks it into high gear. And maybe that's part of the reason I really like Glenn Powell's performance in this movie, because most of the time he's doing crazy stuff with the tornado and the soundtrack is kicked all the way up, and it's just, they work hand in hand. And my final positive for this movie actually has to do with the bad guys in this movie, because of course you're not just going to have a disaster film where there's some natural disasters going on. You gotta have some human confrontation in this movie, and so you do have some bad guys. They're not like, you know, carrying guns or anything like that. You do have some bad guys in this movie, but what I like about them is that they don't preach at the audience the whole time. And I really appreciated that about Twisters, because this very easily in this day and age could have been a movie about climate, could have been a movie where they just preach at you the whole time, shove stuff down your throat, show, oh, see how bad this bad guy is because he's doing this. And don't get me wrong, the bad guy, he's not doing great things, but they never take the time to preach at the audience. They use him as a plot device for the characters the way he should be used. And again, I just appreciate that, because again, with Hollywood, it's very easy for them to create a disaster movie just to give you a piece of climate change information. It's just like, listen, we could talk about that outside the theater, but when I'm at the theater, I just want to watch an entertaining movie. And so I appreciated that about the bad guys in this film, that they weren't too over the top, but they also weren't preaching at you. And that was nice. That'll lead me to my negatives. And my first negative for this movie is a two-part. It is the forced danger and forced romance in this film. So we'll start with part one, the forced danger. What I mean by that is that in this film, you have these moments where, oh my goodness, we can't believe how bad this tornado is, yet we're the people driving into them. And you could say that half of the group that's out there is out there for science and the other half is out there for clicks, but it just doesn't make you as the audience member feel bad for the people stuck in tornadoes when they're constantly driving towards them or driving into them. There's one tornado that happens in this movie at a rodeo, and it was in the trailer, so I don't want to hear about how I spoiled things. It's in the trailer. But there's one tornado that happens at a rodeo that catches people in the movie off guard, and that's the only time in the film that I, in the theater, felt bad for the people dealing with that tornado. Because the people in that rodeo were just living their lives, enjoying themselves, and this disastrous tornado comes through and catches them completely off guard, and it shows how dangerous the tornadoes can be to these people who are just minding their business. You could make a case toward the end of the film that it's also going at a town where people didn't do anything to deserve that, but the beginning of that scene is more of just, hey, let's run into this tornado and see what we can do. And so that annoyed me. Again, the forced danger. They had to push these people into those disastrous situations instead of it just being, hey, listen, this is a force in nature and it's happening right now. We have to find a way to get out. Instead, you have people constantly going towards the danger. And it just annoyed me at a certain point. It was like, all right, I have a great way for you guys to never lose your lives to a tornado. Get the hell out of there. But again, the movie had to be the movie. I understand that. But there was a part two, and that is the forced romance in this movie, because in this film, you have Kate and Tyler who meet, storm chase together, and eventually start to fall in love and have a romantic relationship with each other. And I just don't know how necessary a romantic relationship was with the two of them. The first movie had one too, and again, this is a requel where they're kind of taking elements from that movie and they're putting in this one. So of course you had to have some sort of a romance story, and there's going to be some people that want that like that walk out of the movie like, oh, you know, it's a disaster film. I went, you know, it's fine, but I like the romantic relationship side of things. Okay, so if that's your type of movie, that's great. But this is my video, and these are my negatives, and so I've got to put in there that the romance in this film just sort of felt forced. I won't spoil things, but something happens to Kate's character at the beginning of this film, and when that happens, I was like, and Glenn Powell is eventually going to date her, and that's what the movie did. So it was sort of predictable in that way. And that'll lead me to my final negative of this movie, and that is that there is a lot of corny moments between Kate and Tyler, but also just other people in the movie as well. Like, okay, I understand we're watching a big, dumb, disaster blockbuster film. That's fine. But there's some really corny moments toward the end of this thing that just didn't sit well with me. Like in the film, Tyler has a truck that has anchors that are built into the bottom of it, and they spiral into the earth when a tornado's coming, so this truck can't get ripped away. It was actually a pretty cool thing. I don't know if that's something that's possible, but I bought into it for this movie. I had no problem with it, and it plays into several different scenes of the movie. But at the end of the film, after Tyler and Kate have started to go their separate ways, something happens with that truck at an airport that was just the corniest moment in the entire movie, and maybe in a movie this entire summer, because it just was something you'd never see done. I don't even think it's possible to do what they did in this movie at the end. I just didn't like it. It was corny. And again, it was very much so, hey, we're doing this disaster movie and we're going to tilt full rom-com at the end for the audience. And I don't know, that just bothered me. But overall, I will say that I did enjoy this movie. I had a great time with the tornadoes on screen. I had an even better time with Glenn Powell's performance in this movie. And so would I recommend that you go see this in theaters? I'll say this, if you're in it for Glenn Powell and the romantic relationship, hey, go check it out in theaters or wait for it on streaming. If you're in it for the tornadoes and the destructive damage that the tornadoes can do, then go check this out on the biggest screen possible, because I think that's the best way to view this film. Again, if you're not in it for the disaster portion, this will be fine on streaming. But those are just my opinions because that's my review for Twisters. Guys, let me know if you have seen Twisters yet. If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe we agree or disagree. Maybe there's part of this movie that you really loved, but you didn't like the other part. And I'd be very curious what camp you're in. Or maybe all of it worked for you and I'm just a cranky old man at 33 years old. But with that said though, guys, if you like this video and you want to watch more, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of my Twisters movie review, and sorry this happened in a hotel. If this is the first time you're finding me, most of my reviews are shot in my movie theater room in my basement, but I'm on the road for work, and here we are in a hotel reviewing Twisters. If this is the first time you found me, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and check out the rest of the content on my channel. And I went ahead and threw my 2023 movie reviews right there, and my 2024 movie reviews right there.